Not going for 8 hours. Okay. Am I okay? Can you guys hear me and see me?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Let's get started since we've got all of our wiggles out. Did we all get a chance to read about Tommy? Good old Tommy Green.
Oh, bless his little heart. Yes, we did.
Oh, dude. Bless his heart. I want to poke the kid in the eye. Okay. So I'm not going to do the synopsis since we all read it. So let's first talk about what are the key issues in the case. What would you guys classify as the key issues?
Oh, wow.
Well, I think there's a few. First,
where should I start?
I know. First is definitely communication. Sorry, I feel like I'm kind of biased on that, but I feel like there could be more positive communication. That's one thing I said, because everything is about like negative. Everything is about going behind his back, and then or that Thomas didn't communicate to what's his name, Frank
Davis. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then but Frank also didn't communicate with Thomas, and everyone just go behind each other's back, like things like that. But if there could have been more, open communication, then it wouldn't have all this drama. I don't know.
What else? Anyone else have key issues?
Well, I think Shannon McDonald also hung him out to dry too, because she knew that he was going to struggle there, and she just didn't help out once Frank and him were not getting along. She just kind of waited until she got the memos and that. But she, like when she brought him in, she said, "I know you're going to struggle," and then she didn't do anything to help him. She just let him struggle, and then Frank, who was not happy that he was there, started tearing him apart. Right, like he didn't want him there. And so I think she should have done more to make sure that he was successful, right?
And I think the other thing is when Thomas, in one of those very first meetings, when he kind of undermined Frank as far as, those goals are not attainable. He didn't really have he spoke something, but he didn't have anything to kind of back it up. As to why, I feel that those goals are unattainable because in my experience, Do you know what I mean? So he complained, but he didn't offer a solution to what it is. And, he probably wouldn't want to hear at that point what Frank had to kind of volley back to him either.
Right. Well, and complaining without a solution is pretty futile. I'm going to rock the popsicle stand here because I kind of have a completely different view. And I think the problems are threefold. I think it's everybody. And I don't think anybody's taking accountability for their problem in the matter. I think that Shannon needs to take into account, yes, I did something different. I was trying something different. I tried to hire a guy that wasn't qualified. She did warn him that he was unqualified and that he would have to counsel with management. So she gave him that thing, maybe to see if he was going to cowboy up and do it or not. But that was still her choice to hire him. Frank has his panties in a wad because he didn't get to choose his replacement or have any say about the guy that he was going to be over. And I can see how that would rub him the wrong way. And I think Thomas has a little bit of a big ego.
Mm-hmm.
Feeling like he's awesome sauce, mm-hmm. and he's not being humble to listen to anything. He's not doing what Shannon asked. He's not trying to be humble and learn from management and saying, hey, I'm the new guy here. I better figure out the processes and procedures that are in place. He's just going in like a bull in a china shop saying, hey, I'm just going to do things the way I've always done them because I'm the new awesome guy. And I'm like, I think everybody needs to step back and realize their accountability in the problem.
And I think that was further evidence later on after he had been counseled at least once, where he was just kind of working on his own thing, where he was trying to kind of move on to the next thing. And, I'm so great. I'm going to figure this out. And my clients are going to love me, but not realizing that his clients were wanting more from him, more concrete data that they could do something with versus lip service, because that's really all he was able to give him at this point.
He should really be his own boss, I feel like. I don't feel like he's got good qualities for a manager. I think he's better like a sales guy working on his own a little bit.
I think it's kind of like what the book talk about, the win-win situation. Like I feel like in between Thomas and Frank, like they both are not thinking about being win-win. They're both thinking about I'm gonna win and you're gonna lose.
All about themselves type of thing.
Yeah, they're really trying to stick it to each other.
Yeah.
Okay, we could beat that to death. So if you guys were Shannon McDonald, would you have hired him?
Yes.
That's hard because I think that Shannon started off because she was like almost like a good old boys club because they went to the same school, had kind of similar interests, and and Thomas is really he's charismatic.
Hey.
Hi, Chris.
Hey.
Thomas is really charismatic. I mean, that's what we read several times. He's just, everyone loves him. And so he was able to really sell himself well to Shannon. But she really probably should have taken a step back and thought about how Frank Davis would feel. And if she still made that decision, because really she is over Frank as well, then she should have, like we said in the beginning, brought everyone in together and said, here, let me go ahead and introduce you. This is how I think that Thomas will contribute to your team, Frank. Thomas, I think that you will learn this, and this from Frank. You guys really are going to need to work together. Frank knows this area because that's where he just came from. So lean on him. Let him help you through until you learn the ropes type of thing.
What else? What other pros and cons? We're talking about, Chris, about the pros and cons. Should Shannon have hired him and taken a chance on him? If you were Shannon, what would you have done?
So I think it was a little early too. I mean, he did show some promise, like when he first jumped in. I think it said he had so much sales, like his first. I can't even remember the time period. But he had never had a job of that magnitude. He's been a salesman before, but I don't think he was ready to be a senior. What was his
Marketing specialist.
Yeah, I don't think he was ready for that myself.
So you're saying if you were Shannon, you wouldn't have quite taken him that far?
Yeah, but like you guys said, he was very charismatic. He was a good salesman. He sold himself to her, and I've seen that in companies before, where someone will tell you what they can do and how good they can be and what they can do for the company, and then you hire them and they're nowhere near where they said they would be.
Overpromise, underdeliver.
My husband calls those people the flash in the pan. They're going to do these great things, but they're not dependable. And I think also that in there it talked about she hired him because she thought that group needed something different. And so I think it was a great learning experience for Shannon, and I don't think she'll do it again.
Yeah. Well, if you ask me, I actually would still say I will hire him. Just because of his track record, he brought really good value to the company. But I think what I would change would be if I were Shannon, I would actually train him better, like have better communication to him, express what the expectations are, and be there for him, knowing that hey, if you have any questions, you can come to me. At the beginning, I would definitely lay out all the expectations and what his role is supposed to be, like things like that. I think it would have turned out a lot better.
So almost like a partnership, if you will, where she's kind of coaching and developing him, like a big brother type thing. Big brother.
She was his mentor. She's the one that took the chance on him, right?
Mm-hmm.
She failed him as a mentor. She stopped. She didn't mentor him.
She stopped at the point that she hired him.
Do you feel like she presented it to him as she would be his mentor? Or maybe we didn't have enough information?
No, I think he said that near the end, right? He said that near the end that he thought she had his back, but now he's not sure because he thinks she might side with Frank and he'll get fired.
Yeah, and that they haven't communicated since day one. That's what, So I think if Shannon would have done a better job at, setting their boundaries, expectations, then it would have been better, I think.
She should have done a better transition.
Yeah.
Into the job and the communication between merging in with Frank.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't just think Frank, the two other senior marketing specialists there, like that Michelle Jones, who Frank referenced as, does a great job. She does all these things. You should look to see how she does it. I want you to do it like him. Those three should have been working together under Frank as the director. You know what I mean? Like, never once to talk about him talking to anybody else about, asking for help or, getting feedback on what to do or whatever. He just kind of went on his own like a lone wolf, and then he wasn't doing what he needed to do, right? That was Frank's big thing was, this is what we do here. You've got to do it like this. This is what we do. And he was like, well, I'm going to do it this way, but it wasn't working. Like, he was not focusing on the hotels and car rental agency markets, which is where their growth was, right? He was still going after the airline carrier, and they already had that. You know what I mean? It's like, that's where Frank was saying, hey, we're going to get 10% growth because we're going to focus on hotel and airline or car rental agency kiosks, right? And Thomas never even looked at that. Like, he just never even looked at that.
So what do you think Frank values? What is it that Frank's looking to promote?
The thing that I noticed is that Frank had been successful in years past, and it even talked in the beginning, like, even though he didn't want to hire Thomas, he kind of told him what he did to be successful. Mm-hmm. And even though, and I don't know what you guys talked about, but even though McDonald knew that the team needed something else that Frank wasn't, I think he could have put his own twist on what Frank was already doing, like taking Frank's advice, and yeah, this is what you're doing to be successful, but I'm creative and this is where I think we can go. So I think he should have listened to Frank instead of just kind of brushing him off saying, I know better than you. And I mean, I think he's very prideful myself.
Thomas or Frank?
Yeah, Thomas.
What do you think it was that Frank was trying? What was Frank's, everybody's got their thing that they like. What is it that Frank wanted from Thomas that Thomas wasn't giving him?
One of the things that they talked about was when they would go on sales calls, like to take I can't even remember what it was called, but something that you could show or have people
visual.
Thank you. That's such an easy word. And a visual to your client, so that way they can take it to their management and say, hey, this is what I've been offered. Instead, they have to try to relay the same message that they were sold on, Mm-hmm. And I think that was one of his things, is he was trying to get more papers in and people seeing the company instead of just
documentation of what's happening.
Hear it from someone else.
So what is it that Thomas, so that's what he is valuing. He wants that documentation, that shareability of concrete things. But what is it that Thomas is valuing? Where they're butting heads, what is it that Thomas wants?
I think they both, so they have different management styles and personalities. And Chris kind of said it, where Davis likes to work with the numbers, the memos, the presentations to submit his data and kind of show things. Green would rather talk face to face with his clients because he has that charisma. That's what's able to sell people, versus with Frank, it was probably the data is what sold them. So they really need to converge together, and they really have to develop their personal work relationship together. That's what I think. I think that's a large part of their problem.
It almost seems like maybe Thomas needs to have like an assistant that does, some people just hate paperwork.
That keeps them on task.
Like, you've heard of like these great detectives who are awesome detectives, but if you're a detective, guess what you got to do? Paperwork. Like, he just needs somebody to put all of his great ideas on paper. And in the study, there's that one example. They asked one of the people that work with him. Do you remember that? And they're like, holy cow, he is awesome. He's creative. He's wonderful. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And then what do they say are his negatives?
It was poor on his paper.
Like, maybe they should have given him feedback from a different source other than Frank. Hey, we talked to one of your employees. Like, he thinks you're so great at this, but he feels like you're kind of lacking in this area. Maybe it's somebody, I don't know, that because he's so emotionally charged with Frank.
Well, and I think Winona, she kind of said it that they came, like Frank came in and it was like full on, like almost a semi truck of negativity. And it's, we've kind of talked about that. There are ways that you can present when a goal or something is not being met. You soften it, so you start off with, this is what's going on, but you but you're doing great at this. You compare and contrast the two, so it's not so so blunt and so
We talked
hard.
about our compliment sandwich.
Yeah, well, otherwise, because the minute, so Thomas he's feeling like, oh my gosh, all this stuff is coming at me. It's like an attack. He's got this wall that's going up. He's not going to listen to Frank. So I think at the end of mine, I basically said that Frank needs some, he needs some coaching from McDonald on basically managing his employees. He needs to understand not everyone is like him. And I think we talked about this a few weeks ago. It's not, you're not going to find people that are exactly like you. That's what makes a great team, is when you have a lot of diversity in it. But you do have to learn to work with the people that you do have. And so it needs to start at the top. I mean, one, we already said that McDonald kind of did this wrong, but I think she needs to be coaching Davis that, you know, you've got someone who is you're butting heads with. So you've got to figure out a way around that. You can't keep butting because you're not going to get anywhere with it. But if you kind of go around it.
So what is it that Davis wants? What was his expectation that he set up that Thomas is not giving him?
From my perspective, what I saw was Davis wants Thomas to check in with him, to do the same things that he did. Give everyone what they want. Give them the pretty paper stuff. Give them all of the numbers that they need. Do what I say the way that I've said to do it, because I know it works. Don't question me with what I'm telling you, because you can't give me anything concrete to back up what you're saying. You just keep saying it's not going to work. Don't go behind his back and complain to every other manager in every other department, because that ultimately is going to get back to him. Managers, I speak with other managers in our department all the time. It happens, you know. It's just, I don't know. That's
this is why I think that if I was Shannon, I would still hire him, because I feel like Frank is actually a micromanager.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like he just wants that power. Like, I think the only reason why he is there is because he's been there for 17 years.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the only reason. Like, but other than that, I feel like he just wanna make sure Thomas is doing everything that he wants him to do, instead of trying maybe innovative way, or trying to listen why he thinks that, you know, it's not gonna work. Like, I feel like they're not, well, especially Frank is not thinking about the company's interest, but his own interest. Like, if
so do you think Frank's more at fault?
Like, I feel like if he really cares about the company, he would actually want to listen why you think that it's not going to be 10%. You know what I mean? So, yeah, instead of just, yeah, I mean.
Do you think that Frank would have listened if Thomas would have came to him with other information, though? Or do you think that in Frank's mind it works because he knows it works? He's grown it consistently.
I think it crashed from the beginning because of the meeting. Because Thomas said it in the meeting right in front of him. So he was like, yeah, so he was like, hold up, this new guy, you know, come in here and just like step on me like that. But at the same time, it's Thomas' first time knowing that information. So then he probably felt the need to say it there. So,
and I think knowing Thomas's personality, where he was kind of a go-getter in the sales position, in his mind, I don't think Thomas thought he was doing anything wrong. He just wanted to jump in with both feet, and you know, I think that's great. But I don't think that's something that we can do. I don't see that being attainable with the market that we've already got right now.
Yep,
it should have been a better way. Byron, what actions do you think, if you were Thomas, what do you think you would do now?
It's a hard question.
If I was Thomas, what would I do now?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I was Thomas, I would do what my director is asking me to do, and then I would talk with his supervisor, Shannon McDonald, and the three of us sorted out what's going on, right? Like, I just got a great job that I really wanted. It hasn't gone as I thought it would be in 5 months, but I wouldn't want to quit on it, because I think he could still do a good job. I just think his idea of what it was and what was actually required of him, aren't the same. He thought he could just do sales, right? He's really good at sales. He's awesome at sales and getting the customer to buy into it, but he can't back it up, which is what that position requires, right? That's what Frank is trying to tell him is, hey, you have to be able to give the customers the data so that they'll buy into why they need to have more kiosks, right? That's what he's trying to tell him. And Thomas wasn't getting it, right? So I think once he sees it and it's presented to him like, look, this is how we got to do it so that we can, this is what we do here. It's not just sales. He'll actually stay, and I think he'll do really well. You know what I mean? Once he realizes all the other roles that he has to take on as a senior marketing specialist. But his background is sales, and he's just got to get out of sales mode into marketing mode.
I think that's what I wrote too, is he's got to transition once he knows
That's what I wrote in my paper. So does that mean I'm going to get a B+ this time instead?
You're going to get an A now.
Because Byron said that we already talked about our grades, Chris. You missed that part. Did you get better?
Chris, it's okay to say, what did you get on your...
Did you get better than a B+?
Oh, let me see. Which one
Oh, he doesn't even remember!
Really?
He got such a good grade, he already discounted.
He's like, I'm so over that.
No, the thing is, I'm doing so many different cases right now. I'm doing like 5 cases a week, and I hate it.
Oh my gosh.
He's so full of crap. He got an A+, and he's not going to tell
I
me.
didn't get an A+.
So we're just going to move
Because I
on.
didn't get an A+.
No.
Mhm. We're going to move on from you,
Okay.
Chris.
You move on. I'll just hang out.
Okay, we don't really want you because you're apparently too smart for our group now.
No, I don't know about that either.
Okay, so now we're into my favorite part that I think is the biggest deal with poor little Thomas, little Tommy. We're going to talk about office politics.
Oh.
Yes. So how do you feel like the power play and office politics come in here?
So this is actually kind of what I do.
Office politics?
No. So I just started this business a couple months ago as a communication coach. So I help people individual, with their communication, but I also help basically executives to help their managers how to communicate better so that they avoid those problems. Because when employees actually are more productive, the profit skyrocket most of the time. Like, it's the politics that makes a company not good. And I'm sure you guys have studied as business major or any major really. They study Google and Apple and stuff like that. And that's why people want to work there, because they have no politics and they have good culture. Anyway, so that being said, I feel like it is really, really critical to basically, like, all of them need training, because all of them are not doing their job. Like,
all around, the whole lot of them.
So, and not only communication training, but generally speaking, yes, communication training. So they know how to communicate to their boss and their employees and their, people that they manage. And just like what the book said to you, is it the book or I don't,
Everything's merging. We know. It's okay.
I know. So then,
Your pain.
you need to know who you're dependent to and who is dependent on you. I mean, dependent. Yeah.
We know what you mean.
So then you know how to communicate that way, but also the other way. I think that's just critical for all of them to know, as well as any other employees, basically. And that will take a while, because if you already have the culture in place, it will take a while for them to, break that out and build a new culture.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I don't think their culture permits that at all. Their culture doesn't permit that communication they're not doing any of that.
They almost need team building exercises too.
Yeah, that too.
So they can begin to function more as a team instead of a independent. Like they kind of pointed out, well, if you be more like her, then you'll be doing better. It's why do I have to be like her? I'm me, so I'm going to do it my way. You know what I mean?
So think about this while you guys. So it gives us a couple different things to think about. So in the office politics, so the content or the topic. So we'll just be thinking about these. What does each person want? And in reference to power, the linkages between key results and or characteristics. The next one is legitimate power, given through position or seniority, or coercive power, the ability to enact consequences to influence action. That was deep. I know, it was deep. Occasionally I can do deep. And that's one thing that I really feel like, I mean, I'm all about communications. I'm like an open book, and that's just the way I roll. But I really feel like Thomas's pride was so big that he would not even play office politics. And you got to do some of it. What do you guys think?
Yes.
Do you think he should just be cool and do his own thing, or do you think he needs to be involved in that?
No, you need to be involved in it for sure. I mean, as much as that sucks, that you do need to have some sort of politics. And it sucks that exists in businesses nowadays, but
I've told you I've worked at my job for like 10 years, and we've gone through a couple of different companies. Well, not a couple, I guess technically, yes. So I started out with one company, we were bought out, and then we were bought out again shortly after that. The very first company that I worked for, so I started as an auditor, just plain auditing, and that's it. And the mentality of that job was we were the bad people, because what we did could get people fired, cost them their bonuses, things like that. And I remember being called a bee, and I'm like, what did I do? And it took me, I kid you not, so I kind of just went into my own shell, because I'm like, it's kind of became like a toxic environment. And a lot of it was because our vice president and president, they didn't really support our marketing department. So, we bought out by one company, and that was, just kind of like a small, nothing changed at all. And then we got bought out by the company we're with now, and it was a total mentality shift, because auditing was presented as something different. So it kind of was like, okay, it's a little bit better. The environment was better. I didn't have to go in but one day a week. So I don't really care. You call me whatever name you want, because I'm not here. I'm not going to hear it anyway. But it really has shifted. And so I started to finally come out. It took me quite a few years. And now to the point where it's called a vision team. And so we plan all the office parties and stuff. So they asked me to be on it, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. I had to work with the girl that called me the name. Like, I had to work with her planning these parties.
Of course she did.
It was awful. Like, I go in there, and I'm really not a very timid person, but I would not speak up because she called me a name, and it was not very nice. And we're friends now. We're actually friends on Facebook now, which is kind of ironic. But we, got past that. I've never mentioned it, but it affected me for quite a few years. I literally would just sit back in the corner and do my job, because I knew how they felt, because it's not a fun job, and no one likes to be told they're doing something wrong. But it really was a shift in the company I'm with now, that they value their auditing company, and we've got written guidelines, and you follow them. And that's just how it is. So, but it really, what was that?
Oh, you remind me of the book Talk About Integrity. When you try to think about the win-win situation, you try to think about what the other person think, right? And then when you do that, you actually have to exercise. Well, I think when they talk about integrity from last chapter, it talks about that integrity is how you value, your values and your standard and things like that. So I feel like if that person would have thought about, would have better integrity basically for doing the right job, for her own position, she wouldn't want to say, call you names. And then at the same time, then she would have understand your position as well.
Right.
So anyway.
It's interesting. It's it's really It's interesting.
Well,
But
let's
bless
talk
her heart,
okay.
she can't sit down to do her job anyway, so it's
Yeah.
okay.
Also, we'll give her a break, just as long as she doesn't use that naughty word again. Let's talk about each other specifically, and maybe as we talk about this, maybe let's think about ourselves, how we would handle it, since that's why we're here, is to figure out the way we handle things. So let's talk about conflict styles. Okay. So let's think about competition. Competition, conflict style would be characterized by aggressive, maybe calling names, and uncooperative behavior. I believe that.
Did you guys take the conflict management class?
I haven't taken it yet.
I haven't taken that one.
450?
Yeah, 450.
Yeah, I haven't taken it yet because somebody told me it required way too much. I don't have time for that right now.
It required what?
Too much reading.
Oh.
I don't have time to read.
It is a lot of reading.
A different semester. But that's, so think about characterized by aggressive and uncooperative behavior. I just had a thought pop into my head. I wonder, like, if Thomas, because this was Frank's old position, and he knew he wasn't going to be like Frank, if he just totally went a different direction. He's like, I'm just going to do this job like this.
No, I think no matter what, I think when we said earlier that he's still stuck almost in that sales mentality. And I think that he's trying to plop what he does in his sales into this job to try to make it fit and work.
That's what I wrote in my thing, but I wondered if anybody had a different opinion. Do you feel like he's got some competition going on?
You know what? Let's be honest. If a VP said to you, hey, I just want to give you a heads up, you're going to have a difficult time in this because you're taking over this other guy's job and he didn't get to handpick you. Like, really, how would you feel going into that? Like, let's really be honest.
Exactly.
Put yourself in that position. I'd be like, oh, crap.
Him. That was my thing. She warned him, you do not have any managerial experience. You have to surround yourself with managers. She told him that. I believe she should have done better.
Here's the thing. He did surround himself with managers in other departments while he was complaining and moaning and groaning. He surrounded them in another way. She could have approached it differently, she could have said, you know, these are your positives, these are your negatives. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you to Frank, and I'm going to give you guys some goals. I'm going to give Frank some goals for you that he needs to work on. I'm going to give you some goals that you need to work on with Frank and the people around you as well. I mean, from the get-go, I think it starts at the top, and like you said, it's all of them, and it trickled downhill. It like fell downhill like a landslide.
So think about in conflict styles. So we also have compromise. Was there a compromise somewhere?
Nope. No, because Thomas chose to do his own thing. He continued to run away from any sort of.
But really hard. Was there one?
I don't think so.
I'm trying to think of the positive. Come on, there had to be one.
Compromise is not the best conflict style either.
Each party gives up something to gain something. I can't think. I think everybody is stuck to their guns. Hey, you guys can't think of one. What about avoidance? Hey!
Well, definitely a lot. Like Thomas, you know, he said it himself. He's tried so hard not to talk to Frank at all.
But I think Frank avoided things too, and the way that Frank approached it was extremely negative. And rather than
talking to Thomas, he went behind his back.
Well, the first time he talked with Thomas, but then he immediately followed it up with a scathing email to McDonald and said, "I just want to let you know, you're star person. So this is how much he's kind of messing up, left and right, all around the board." And then the next one bypassed Thomas completely and went straight to McDonald, saying something's got to get.
Well, and I'm not in the workplace right now. Okay, so you guys are. So I mean, I do work, right? I have 6 kids. Not to minimize motherhood. But I'm sitting there thinking, like, so he writes this first paper to Shannon, right? He didn't do anything that they had talked about. Like, if you're working a job, like, and your boss says, hey, we're really falling short in these areas, I need you to do blah, blah, blah. Like, wouldn't you do something instead of just avoiding it?
You'd think so.
Normal people do.
Like, was that not like a red flag to you? Like, are you like bipolar and you just, or like multiple person? I don't know.
You know,
You guys
the
are in the
funny thing
workplace, but like,
Maybe he was overwhelmed and didn't know where to start.
Yeah, when I look at it in a communication standpoint, I actually think that Thomas might not even know that he was doing that. Like I felt like because I generally feel like that he actually cares about what he does and he's trying because you know how he talks about he jumped right in, he wanted to get the work done. They also talk about that he left Orlando early because he doesn't want to be unproductive. Like,
See,
so
but I think he was going to do personal stuff after that. I think he was looking after himself.
his house and his furniture, right?
Yeah.
but then
I don't know.
So
And
so,
relationship.
those kind of things. But then I feel like, yeah, he just didn't even like. I feel like Shannon talked about a little bit about it, but she really wasn't clear. If that makes sense, like she didn't really set the expectations. She just said, "Well, you come in the wrong place because of that." Okay, so like, what is the after that? You know what I mean? Like she didn't express that. Hey, so you need to be doing this and that, and you need to be talking to Frank. Like she didn't say anything like that. So
Which
No,
I
but Frank
agree with
said
that.
though.
I agree with that, but back to what Byron said, right? You have an expectation when you go into a job of what it's going to be. And if that's not what happened, Shannon was at fault. That's right. But Thomas isn't doing himself any favors.
yeah.
So
agree.
I don't know whether Frank made a list of the things he needed to improve upon, but Thomas doesn't like to make lists. Thomas doesn't like to write things down anyway. He's got it all up here, remember? Like he doesn't need to write it out.
He had his pants.
And so
That
I'm
is
kind
really
of
bad in any kind of workplace.
I'm feeling like Chris and I really hate Thomas.
Yes.
I feel like we really don't like the guy. Like we're like, if you work for us, we're gonna have a hard time being nice to you. And I really feel like
So do you feel it was a blatant disregard for everything that Frank said to him? He just blatantly said,
oh, you know what the problem is? Oh, I know what happens after. Did you guys read it?
No.
Oh, that's why. That's why I'm like, why don't they know what they don't know.
Because you're the leader. Okay, tell us.
Yeah, because I read the no, I'm not telling you. I read that last page of the book before we got to get to we have to have our converse. I hate Thomas. Just so you know, when you find out what he did, Chris, we know.
I must have some kind of inkling.
You do. He is a naughty, naughty person. Okay.
I'm not gonna look at it right now.
No, don't you go look at it now. Okay. So how can he salvage this situation? I think Byron touched on that a little bit when he talked about that we need to get everybody together. Do we all agree on that?
Someone
Yes.
needs to change, and that someone is everyone.
And I really believe Shannon needs to eat her words on this one. She needs to come in and be a mediator.
Yeah, I agree.
Who's Shannon? Who's two?
she
Somebody
needs
has
to
two
own
people.
her culpability in it.
Yeah, I think she kind of dropped the ball, and she needs to understand that. And that was my point of my paper. Is everybody's got to own their part, and she needs to come in as the senior management. I think, like Chris said, it's a little early in the game just to let him go. I don't believe we've given Thomas, as much as we don't like him, the benefit of the doubt. Do you guys agree with that?
I'm
Yes,
in
I
agreement
agree.
because they put what 5 months into him, and it's. I agree. I think it's too early to cut your losses yet. I think that he could be trainable, but it's going to require a mindset change from two of them, if not really all three of them, because I think Shannon needs to be on board with that.
So what are we going to do? So what's the process here?
What I would do is move him to a different position. I don't think he's a senior marketing specialist or whatever it was. I think he'd be a great right below the senior marketing, which is but then it'd come with a pay cut, right?
Well, he already got his fancy furniture coming in his girlfriend,
In his
right?
new house.
Yeah, that goes back to his own personal issues. But I think he'd be a good market specialist. I don't think he's a great team leader, just because I think he's got his own agenda that he's trying to accomplish. He's not worried about the big picture, you know. It mentioned that in like November, December, and January, he spent most of that time working with that software update that he had
His special project.
Yeah, his special software
yeah.
project. And he wasn't worried about his job. You know, that's where he focused his time. He wasn't worried about what he was supposed to be doing. He was off doing something else.
My goodness, I just read it.
I told you not to read it. I'm going to give you an F on this assignment, Winona. That's it. Don't any of you read it. You guys be good kids. Byron already read it. He's just being quiet about it. So do you think, raise your hand if you think this relationship can be repaired. Pretend you didn't read it, Winona.
I'm not going to raise my hand. Just
No, I think it can be if they change. Like anything can be repaired if
It's going to be
both sides
require
change.
work on both sides.
That sounds like
Feasibly knowing their personalities. You know Frank's personality. You know everybody. Do you think it can be fixed?
No.
I do, but I think it's going to require. I actually think they need to bring in the other two senior.
Right.
They need
Market
to bring
specialists.
in. It's peer pressure once they are working with them, and it's not just Frank and he sees what the other two are doing. It's going to make him realize, oh, this is what I need to be doing. They're doing it. I see how they're doing it. That's what I need to do. Instead of just getting it from Frank, he's going to see what the other people at his level, his peers, are doing, and that will bring him in line.
Great idea, Byron. I like the
I don't
shadowing.
think so.
Shadowing people. Chris hates him. You can't.
I don't think that would help.
Listen,
Wait,
Chris
guys.
is Frank.
Sorry.
You know, I wouldn't want to believe that it couldn't be done. I would probably do everything, but my inkling is that his head is too big and it won't be fixed.
Green's head or Davis?
Green's head.
Okay.
But we just have one more section and then we can jump to the last page of the book. And these are I'm just going to ask these because they're very specific questions. So we're going to apply now. How can managing up be applied at work?
Managing up.
Managing up as in quotes. How can managing up, there you go, be applied at work for those of you that are in the workplace? I have a little more experience with that. Who keeps having bass music? Come on.
Not me.
Darn it.
I
That
wish
sounds cool.
it was me.
Nobody has anything?
I'm not sure what you mean by managing.
So I think, can you repeat the question one more time? I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, I can.
Okay,
How
thank you.
can managing up be applied at work?
So basically that means to make the person that you report to kind of to make them look better. So if you are being your best person, it reflects on your boss. So I think that that's something that can affect you because other departments, perhaps other department heads or leads are going to notice that, and then you become something more of a commodity, if you will. Like you're looked upon as, okay, that person's a good team player. That's person that is, going to sit there and create value for the company and for the department that you're in.
That's the only
Yeah,
thing
I
that
feel
I
like-
feel like he could do to make it better at this point. But he'll refuse to do it.
Yeah, I feel like in this case, basically, or any work situation, I strongly believe that Green could be smarter than Frank, but then he's not really being respectful and just respecting the chain of command, basically. But if he actually, like Karen and Shelby talk about, that if he would have talked to Frank, privately after the meeting, it would have been so much different. Like that, that Frank will probably try to dig into, if what he said is true, and that he's being respectful, didn't call him out, things like that.
It's kind of like when my dog comes up to me and I pet her head. If he would have petted Frank's head, like, oh, you're so great, you're so wonderful, like build him up, I think the whole thing would have been completely different.
Yeah.
But he didn't because he's a dork and Chris knows it. Okay, so what principles of power, or what are the principles of power within the organizational structure?
A lot of stubbornness going on from all sides.
Yes.
I think there's a lot of control from Frank I think Frank wants to control Thomas a little bit, and Thomas
Digs his
It's kinda
heels in and says
it's
no.
kind of like a relationship with your teenagers. The more you control, the more they dig in. I feel like that's what's happening. He's trying to control Thomas, so Thomas is like,
This is why we call Office Politics high school drama, you know?
I
Oh,
think
see, and I actually go. I would call it junior high drama. That's what.
no, that's the worst.
Yeah.
The toilet bowl of the universe. What were you gonna say, Byron?
Oh, I think Frank is old school, and so he's like kind of like what Winona was saying. Follow the chain of command. This is what you need to do. This is how you do it. This is what's been done for the last 19 years that I've been here. But Thomas was brought in to be fresh and different, and so that's where he's having that problem with it, and so it's like that's where it was stemming from, right? Frank is old school. This is how we do it. This is the way it is here. Thomas wasn't doing it that way. Frank got his feathers ruffled, and then was just like, okay, well, we need to like shut him down, right? He's either going to start doing it this way, or I'm going to get him sent somewhere else.
It's my way or the highway.
Well, and I think you bring up a good point, Byron. It's kind of like you and Winona have been talking about. It has been that way, and that's okay. But you're not going to change the office politics overnight, and you're not going to change the culture. But like you said, Shannon is the one that brought him on. If she thought the office needed a fresh change, then she should be the one to see this change through.
Yeah.
She's just kind of like, oh, I'll hire this guy and everything will change. Well,
Have
no,
you guys
dummy.
have you guys ever, there's a book, it's called Who Moved My Cheese. Have you guys ever heard about that?
I've heard of it, but I haven't.
So
read it.
we this is our second go around of Who Moved My Cheese. So basically, when we first got bought out, that was kind of, we had all these cheese things, and so it's a way to basically address like your cheese is starting to stink, which means you're not moving along with everything else. You're not being
You're
you're not
stagnant.
being a change champion. And so rather than just completely be negative to someone, you could, we would just like say something like, oh, someone's cheese is starting to stink in here, because then it wasn't so offensive or negative. But seriously, because we're getting a new system, we're now on round 2 of Who Moved My Cheese. So it's about 8 years, 10 years difference between them. But that's kind of, that's what it kind of made me think of is when Shannon did that, she should have introduced some other initiatives so that way they knew what was coming. Instead of just because really, let's think about it. She threw Thomas to the wolves. She literally tossed him into hungry wolves, and they were eating him up. So he, for lack of a better word, he was going to do whatever he was going to do no matter what. But I think he went into survival mode because of the way that he continued to feel attacked by Frank. Whether it was right or wrong aside, I think that he was in survival mode for a lot of what he was.
She set him up to fail a little bit.
See, my issue with it is that I can't keep the names.
Thomas, Frank, and Shannon.
Frank. So Frank had already been seeing that kind of success in his position the previous 3 years, I think they said, and so he just kind of put the same growth. And Thomas is supposed to be better, he's supposed to be the new version, and he sees that kind of growth, and he's like, oh, we can't grow that much, and he kind of shut it down before he even tried to understand how he got there. He had given up before he even started, in my eyes.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
You just hate Thomas. I'm just messing with you.
I do.
Okay, we talked about how office politics come into play, I think. And I think with the stinky cheese, we talked about how to be proactive in managing office politics, that we need to be moving. We got to be open to change. We got to communicate about these things and understand and be constantly, the training and things that you guys have talked about are really important. Okay, so what? Okay, so do you feel like there are any gospel connections that are pertinent to this? That was kind of threw me for a loop. Sorry.
Oh, definitely.
Humility.
Humility.
Or lack thereof, whichever.
Everything. Charity. Like this.
Mine is I'm just really into this right now with our new prophet change. We have to be amenable to change. There is nothing as constant as change, and you've got to be okay with it.
And it's
Yeah.
inevitable. It's going to happen whether you want it to happen, whether you support it happening. It's just going to be.
Make the best of it with a good attitude because it's hard for everyone.
Yep, and really see others as children of God too.
Oh, that's a good one.
I feel like
Why you gotta say that?
Say that
What?
again.
What did you say?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Smirky face.
Oh, I said, why'd you have to say that? I was so against him.
Oh. I think that's the hard one for sure. But I try to think about that when I see others that, I don't know, just like I was just telling Shelby, the other class. So
We don't like our other groups, guys. We're trying, but we just can't do it. I'm sorry, we've tried. Okay, last thing. Are there connections between the reading assignment this week?
yeah, I mean, I talk about a lot about that too, the win-win situation and the integrity to really think about. I think when we talk about the win-win situation, it really is. I strongly believe if someone is putting the same goal, like if both of them are actually thinking about the company, like company result oriented instead of themselves, then they are definitely going to be win-win because they have the same goal. Anyway, yeah, so the win-win situation.
There's one that's good. I just turned that one. No, turn that one off. There's one that's good. Sorry, there's toddler drama at my house. Well, what else are you gonna do? Okay. Before I tell you what happened, I have two questions really quick. Chris,
Yeah.
how is Mr. Work Destructo?
Oh, it was good until like today, but we're getting through it.
It's Wednesday. It always happens on Wednesday.
It does. Middle of the
Honestly,
week.
yeah, that's like only like 2 days he was good. That's like not even toddler
It's like
good.
2.5 days.
And it's probably because I was busy doing other things that I couldn't see what he was doing.
Oh, so just stay away from him. Yes, we have a solution.
Just be like Thomas. Be like Thomas.
Avoid it.
Avoid it. Avoid it. Okay. And Karen, how is your son doing in DC?
Oh, he's back. I'm like, which one? Well, because my other son graduates
Which
next
one?
Wednesday. Well, and
I'm
there was like
sorry.
some drama if he was going to graduate because he had to do a PE thing from BYU and he was dragging his feet. And then his English, he's my autism one, and they wanted him to write something, and he's like, I don't get it. And I'm like, so I emailed his counselor, and I'm like, listen, he doesn't get it. I need help telling him what to do because I can't micromanage him all weekend if I don't even know what he's supposed to do. And the book they read was The Island of Dr. Morio. So it's about a guy who basically, it's called vivisecting. So he, merges man and beast and then makes like leopard beast and dog man and all these things. Anyway, but she's like, oh, he can do a character analysis because that's concrete and he'll get that. So I spent the weekend with him doing a character analysis and he got it all done. And I said, let me proof it for you, please. Just bless your heart. So I made a few corrections, let him look at them and apply them or not apply them. And yeah, so he's going to graduate.
I love going to school for all of my children. I, however, told all of my children's teachers that I'm done with school and I won't be sending my children anymore. I'm like, it has been a really crappy long year and I'm all done.
I'm so
we're
done with
not
this.
going.
But no, my other one got back. He got back late Monday night, like at, oh gosh, it was like 12:30. They're playing. He texted me. Well, I texted him. I'm like, dude, your plane leaving out of DC is it's a little late, and you're like, you have 20 minutes in where did they land in Denver? And I'm like, this should be fun for you guys. And there's like 20 some odd of them flying together. So he's like, Mom, they're saying we might have to stay another night. I'm like, no, they just need to call Southwest. Southwest will hold it because there's 25 of you coming on.
Yeah.
So they ended up and then I said, I'm so snarky because I love Southwest. Don't get me wrong, but the next one's going to be late too. I don't, because they're always late. Like every January I'll look, because I traveled a few years ago when we were looking at new systems, and every single week I was traveling back. Oh, look, guess what? Southwest is late again. Oh, look, it's late again.
I always had a good experience. Maybe it's because we live in Atlanta for a while, and that's where they fly a lot. And
we
then
live in Salt Lake. They fly
all the time.
We have a hub here. No, it's funny. So he loved it. He walked like 8.5 miles a day. Like every day, I'm like,
goodness.
send me how much you walk. So on his phone, he would like send it to me. But
And then his phone would say, "Good job, you walked all your allotted steps today."
I know, go you. No, he had a lot of fun though. They did so much. We got an email from them, and she said that the tour guide said that they were the best group that they had, probably because they were so small. They were really well behaved. They got to do extra stuff that they didn't plan on doing. They only, one person lost his phone when he got there. They let him go back in, so they gave him just a day pass to go back into the airport to grab it. And then another kid, I asked my son, I'm like, the same kid? He's like, no, a different one. He thought he lost his wallet in the Space Center, but it ended up being in the bus. So all in all, I think a good experience. He had a lot of fun.
For kids, that's all you can expect. Okay, guys, are you ready?
Okay, share. I already read it too.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
I haven't read it yet.
As soon as you
Stupid
said it,
women.
I'm like, what?
Women, I'm sorry. I apologize. It's the
I think
way.
I missed that last week, so I
Yeah.
apologize.
I'll make sure it's worth it for you guys. Ready? Okay.
Are you
After-
going to summarize?
No, I'm going to read the whole thing because it's like
Okay.
10 lines. After McDonald's February 5th email, Green took the offensive against his boss. He crafted a series of memorandums, emails, reports, and projections that exposed inaccuracies and creative forecasting. This data enabled Green to build some alliances with other marketing personnel who used the data to ultimately side with him. On April 4th, it was announced that Frank Davis was being moved laterally to an undefined special project. However, Green's tactics were seen as overly brutal by many in the company. And although he won the battle against his boss, his career was irreparably harmed. McDonald distanced herself from him. By July of 2008, Green announced he was resigning from his position to pursue full-time studies for an MBA. We can only speculate what would have occurred if Green had tried to help Davis work discrepancies and problems of forecasts. Perhaps both might have succeeded.
There you go.
Molly is a weasel.
I was like super disappointed. Like I read that and I felt like, really?
But let's
That's what
be honest.
happened?
So after reading,
I couldn't even imagine a worse ending than that.
I feel like that proved that he could have pulled those data like long before, when everyone was asking him about the data. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
he could have done it if he really wanted. Ooh, Trixie Pants Winona. Trixie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have anything respectful to say. I think that is so low and so dirty. And I don't appreciate that at all. I'm just so disappointed in that. Does anybody else have
Unfortunately,
anything
they
nice
do
to
it
say?
all the time.
No.
Byron, would you like to say something nice?
Hopefully during his MBA, he'll be able to kind
The
of.
other people there are also competitive.
He
I
might
think
even be able to study his own case.
What was that?
He might even be able to study his own case from Harvard Business School.
I'm
Perhaps.
sure that's where he's going. That's one of my favorite things. So my husband went to BYU Business School, and when I was in there one day, like talking to people, the biggest line at BYU Business School is, "Oh, what are you going to school for?" "Well, I'm going to business school." "Well, what are you going to do?" "I'm going to make me lots of money." "How are you going to do that?" "I'm at BYU Business School." Gotta have a plan in there, buddy. You gotta have a plan. And I feel that's kind of how Thomas was. "Well, I have this new position. I'm gonna be awesome. I'm gonna be awesomer than anybody." How you gonna do that, bud?
Yeah, you have to act for sure.
I don't feel like his plan was really great. So lastly,
I have a positive for you, Shelby.
oh yay!
Yeah, well, with with him leaving and then Frank also departing, that means that other people were able to move into those positions and then carry the company forward better. They got rid of the people that weren't going to do them well, and now those that stayed will be able to work better together because they saw the fallout that happened. You know what I mean? So they'll
And I think
probably
still there.
be better off.
Well, I think we all agree that Thomas wasn't going to do anything. What do you think Shannon and Frank learned from this?
I think Shannon learned that people have to prove themselves before giving them promotions. Like one good thing doesn't mean you
Equate
should promote them that
wonderfulness.
much, you know? Yeah. Doesn't justify it.
Mm-hmm.
So it had mentioned that most people that are senior market specialists, like it takes years to get there. And she just kind of threw it to him, you know?
I hope that she learned something from her management style by doing what she did. Because not only did she promote early, but she also she wasn't very supportive to either one of the people that were below her subordinates. She didn't help them because, again, it goes back to that whole managing up thing. She didn't help them to manage up to her because she wasn't contributing the things that she needed to help them succeed. And that really, at the end of the day, reflects on her as well. Had she helped them to facilitate maybe their growth and development, then, you know, maybe they would have moved in a different direction, and that would have reflected on her as a manager to them as well.
What about Frank?
No, that's what I'm saying. Well,
No,
what do I
I'm saying? What do you think he learned?
Not to give someone 5 months.
I'm hoping that he maybe learned to
Be more open to new ideas.
constructive criticism.
Hey,
and
that doesn't
communication.
exist. Who just said that?
Who said what?
Yeah.
Constructive criticism.
That would be me. Is that
Byron hates that. Don't say that. Byron hates that
I'm
word.
sorry.
Oh.
Be open to listening to what
Criticism.
others are contributing towards your management style.
We have to be open to other ideas, even if you're the manager. I mean, even
'Cause you're
though it's
not
what you
perfect.
say goes, you know, you need to try to view it at other people's point of views and say, you know, that might be better than what I thought. I think you just have to be open
Like-
to it.
like-
Part of being a manager is not just managing projects. You are managing people, and you have to know how to do that.
Exactly, and I think they have a responsibility to actually help his people to blend into the company culture, which this is why Google is a successful company again. It's because they make their people love working there and love doing all the project, and they all have one goal, which is, you know, for the company's interest. So I think that is something that is manager's job, basically, to help their people to reach that goal. So
I agree. Well, now that Winona has a blankie and Karen is snuggling with her cat, you guys have made me completely exhausted. And so I just need to press stop here. And how do I get the link to submit?
So when you go back to YouTube and then under your videos,
It'll be
Like-
there.
yeah. If you can find it, email me.
Okay, I'll email you guys a copy and then I'll submit it right now. And you guys should be getting your grades tomorrow.
Yes.
Best of luck. I expect an A- this time, Byron. And you need to pay a little better
Better than me,
attention
I'm
to your
sure.
grades.
Oh, is this our case study? Oh, I don't want to
Yeah.
talk about that.
I know.
no,
So,
I
Chris,
kinda
you
know.
need
I
to
don't
be on
expect
top of
it.
your grades a little more.
I
If you
know.
don't,
I'm just trying to learn. I don't care about the grades. I'm just trying to get the material in.
Oh, yeah.
I
Take-
think we
take the
probably all need to
moral
think
high
about that.
road. Well done.
Yeah.
Chris
job.
takes the moral high road, and all we women look like idiots. Okay. I'll go read my scriptures now, and we'll see you guys next week. Have a great Memorial Day.
Thank you.
You too. Take care,
Toodaloo.
guys. Bye.
Okay, see you guys.